Good morning, everyone. Welcome to UCAS. We have Camille and myself talking about Romans chapter 3. So, Camille, if you want to go ahead and start reading for us.
Sure. Then what advantage has the Jew, or what is the value of circumcision? Much in every way. To begin with, the Jews were entrusted with the oracles of God. What if some were unfaithful? Does this faithlessness nullify the faithfulness of God? By no means. Let God be true, though everyone were a liar. As it is written, that you may be justified in your words and prevail when you are judged. But if our unrighteousness serves to show the righteousness of God, what shall we say? That God is unrighteous to inflict wrath on us? I speak in a human way. By no means. For then, how could God judge the world? But if through my lie God's truth abounds to his glory, why am I still being condemned as a sinner? And why not do evil that good may come, as some people slanderously charge us with saying? Their condemnation is just. What then? Are we Jews any better off? No, not at all. For we have already charged that all, both Jews and Greeks, are under sin. As it is written, none is righteous, no, not one. No one understands, no one seeks for God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one. Their throat is an open grave. They use their tongues to deceive. The venom of asps is upon their lips. Their mouth is full of curses and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. In their paths are ruin and misery, and the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes.
Now we know that whatever the law says, it speaks to those who are subject to the law, so that every mouth may be shut and the whole world may become subject to God's judgment. For no one will be justified in his sight by the works of the law, because the knowledge of sin comes through the law. But now, apart from the law, the righteousness of God has been revealed, attested by the law and prophets. The righteousness of God is through faith in Jesus Christ, to all who believe, since there is no distinction. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. They are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus. God presented him as an atoning sacrifice in his blood, received through faith to demonstrate his righteousness, because in his restraint God passed over the sins previously committed. God presented him to demonstrate his righteousness at the present time, so that he could be righteous and declare righteous the one who has faith in Jesus. Where then is boasting? Is it excluded? By what kind of law? By one works? No. On the contrary, by a law of faith. For we conclude that a person is justified by faith apart from the works of the law. Or is God the God of the Jews only? Is he not the God of the Gentiles too? Yes, of Gentiles too. Since there is one God who will justify the circumcised by faith and the uncircumcised through faith. Do we then nullify the law through faith? Absolutely not. On the contrary, we uphold the law. So, all right. What stuck out to you, Camille? Where do you want to take us?
Well, first of all, when I read this chapter, sometimes I have to stop and read it in small elements because it seems like, what's he trying to say there in the beginning? Yeah. But verse 21, those first two words, but now, I love the transition there because it's like the first half of the chapter is just telling the Jews, you're no different than the Gentiles. Yes, you were chosen by God. God chose to use you, that you were the line that the law came through, but and also that our Savior came through. But it doesn't make you better. You're still on the same level as the Gentiles. We've all sinned. But I love that, but now. The Jews were trying to earn their salvation. They were trying to follow all their laws. And God says, no, none of you are righteous. Not even if you think you're following all the laws, you're not, because there's sin in all of it. And, without Christ, we would be without hope. And so I just love this, that, it's that, but now we have Jesus. Now I've sent Jesus. There's hope, great hope in that. for our sins to be forgiven, not just to be covered, but to be forgiven. And I love, like, also verse 26. It says, it was to show his righteousness at the present time, so that he might be just and the justifier of the one who has faith in Jesus. And in my notes down here, it talks about, so God's saving righteousness has been manifested now in the death of Jesus Christ, so that God's justice and love are reconciled at the cross. We're all sinful. We all deserve the justice from God. But God chose, but now he sent his son, which is where the justice and the love of God are reconciled together at the cross. And just the hope that is, just the hope for me personally. You know, every day I've heard it said that every day we need to preach that gospel to ourselves. On the one hand, because sometimes we get thinking we're like the Jews. Oh, I'm doing good. I'm not doing these sins, so I'm doing really good. So I need to tell myself, you know what? No, there's nothing good in me, in myself. But there's Jesus. But now there's Jesus. And there's the other hand too, where it's, I think I'm doing good. And then I mess up, and then you get discouraged. But I can go back and say, yeah, but now there's Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just, I love the hope that's in that.
Yeah. And piggyback, I'm going to go two ways with this real quick. But first off, when you mentioned, when we mess up, we get discouraged. You guys at home don't know this, but we just did this a couple minutes ago, and the whole thing, somehow I didn't record it. So you guys this is take 2, and I am feeling that discouraged. I'm like, we both have other things to do. I just wasted Camille's time. I feel bad, but yeah, it happens. And I'm pretty sure she's extending grace to me. And so hopefully we can still give you guys something good here from Romans 3. But also, just the way you were talking about that reminded me of someone told me one time, our faith should not be by like what we do, but we should live in a way that our response is from the gospel. And so we have Jesus, we have the knowledge that Jesus died for us, and we have the opportunity to then respond to that. And so if we live in a way that we constantly remind ourselves of who God is and who we are, and then our response isn't, the turmoils and the sadness, and it also isn't, well, I can do these things and get better. Our response is, God, I love you. And I'm going, and after that, we see ways and we grow in ways that we can love God better. We can love God better by reading his word. We can love God better by following his decrees for us. We can love God better by doing acts of service, of kindness to other people, of, treating others the way we would want to be treated, being neighborly in a good way. And so that's, I just love that idea of our response is to love God. It's not anything that we can control, not anything we can do, because so much of, us wants to do that, so much of our humankind, and you see it in the New Testament. The Jewish leaders were like, all right, this, and this, and this, and this is what God's going to do when he sends his Messiah. And Jesus came and he did his own thing. He didn't follow what they expected. And so we want to then have the gospel, have our faith lived out in a way that we can understand and we can build on each other. But that's not the goal here. The goal isn't to do a step, it's not a 12-step program to get to God. It's a one step. It's a response. It's a response. God, I love you. And then it's because I love you, I'm doing these things and I'm growing closer towards you in the different ways that, Christians typically live out their lives. Now, those things aren't the goal. The goal is to love God, but those things typically help us to get to God. So, yeah.
I love that thing of it's our response. It makes me think of in John where Jesus said, if you love me, you will obey my commandments.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I'm obeying the commandments to earn my salvation. I'm doing it because I love Jesus, because of what he's done for me. And the whole thing of, because of when I truly understand what he's done for me, then my natural response is going to be obedience. Because if somebody loves me that much to do what he did, then I'm going to want to love them back. I'm going to want to do those things. It's not that it's the law hammering down on me saying, you need to do this, 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 and this. No, it's the love of God coming and saying, my son Jesus did this for you when you had absolutely no hope. You had no way. You were lost in your sin. No one's righteous. And then God stepped in. Those two words, but now.
Yeah.
It's just that hope that's there. And the fact that when I understand that there's nothing I can do, that I am truly not righteous, there's no good in me, but yet God chose to do that, my natural response is going to be obedience. Because he did for me what I could never, ever be able to do for myself. And the hope that's in that. Keith Porter, a friend of mine, I remember him saying, cheer up. You're a whole lot worse than you think you are. Cheer up. But God is infinitely more gracious and loving than you can even imagine. And that's I just every day need to go through that. Because sometimes we do get thinking, I'm doing pretty good. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm not, or I did really well today loving them. And then that pride comes in. But cheer up. You're a whole lot worse than you think you are.
Yeah.
And it's just that. But I love the thing of the response. That is my response to what Christ has done for me.
Yeah. One other thing I'm going to grab out of this, it's for future discussions, but I think it's important. In verse 20, for no one will be justified in his sight by the works of the law, because the knowledge of sin comes through the law. And just later, I think it's in Romans, but I've heard it, Paul talk about that idea of, when he's going through his debating of, I'm sinful, I'm dying to the flesh, I want to be with God. But he talks about at one point the law brought sin, because if we don't have any laws, then we don't have any sin. So there's no breaking the law if there isn't a law. And so that's just an interesting piece that's gonna, that grows to a bigger conversation later. But I mean, I think that little piece explains it and puts it in our minds, so that way he can dive deeper later on with it. So
yeah.
I picked that up the third time we read through it. So, all right. Well, Camille, thanks for coming. Did you have anything else, I guess I should say, before?
No, I think that's
okay. Didn't know if anything else jumped out at you the third time through, but all right. So thanks, Camille, for your patience. Thanks for joining us on UCAST today. We will hopefully see you guys this weekend. We'll have the online stuff hopefully fixed and up at 10:45. We have the kids video, as well as we do have the church service will be here at the church. And then we'll have some inside seating that's socially distant, overflow and kids worship, and even some outside seating if you want to bring a lawn chair. So hope to see you guys there, either online or in person. So thanks again, Camille. And yeah, we'll see you guys later. Bye, everybody.
yeah.